Alright, for pride. Pride is going low. We need to really focus on pride next time, I think. Lavina was out of her rooms that day, a circumstance about which Sara was not sure whether to be pleased or dismayed. She can be kind when she chooses to be. Other girls sometimes give me such pitying looks, but they have never lifted a hand to aid me. Sara remembered all too well how little treats had cost when she was a schoolgirl with pocket money. She remembered how many clothes she had owned, far more than she needed. Any one of the students at Miss Minchin's Seminary could have reached out to Sara and made her life a little easier, just as she had once done for Becky. But they did not. Not because they were hateful, they were only young girls. They did not consider Sara's needs. They found her circumstances uncomfortable, if they noticed them at all. They looked away. Only Lavina thinks about me enough to offer assistance. Yet only Lavina thinks about me enough to be deliberately cruel. Would I be any better off as her servant rather than Miss Minchin's? She moved around the room, picking up discarded items, straightening furniture, checking that the mended seam in the feather pillow had not come undone. Each student at Miss Minchin's had a simple trinket box for their own small treasures. Most kept one or two pieces of jewelry inside. Some added a pretty rock or a dried flower or a seashell. That day, Lavina's trinket box was out of place, pushed back against the wall. She must have fallen against her dresser this morning and jarred it loose. I hope nothing has spilled out and become lost. Ever conscientious, Sara went to her hands and knees on the carpet by the bed and looked underneath it. She could see nothing out of place. However, if something had fallen behind the dresser, she would first have to move that before she could see or reach any lost items. The dresser was large and heavy, and the mirror on top fragile. She would have to be careful. Sara took hold of the sides and pulled her thin arms, straining. After a moment, the dresser shifted away from the wall just enough to look. Ah! Her effort was rewarded. There was a bit of lost jewelry down there, swathed in dust. Lavina herself would have had trouble reaching it even if she had known it to be present, but Sara's two thin fingers now fit easily into small places. She pulled the glinting object free. It was a small oval locket, engraved with twining leaf pattern around the edges on a fragile gold chain. The chain was not long. It must have been meant for a young child's neck. How long was this lying behind the dresser? Did it belong to Lavina at all? The dust suggested that no one had moved the dresser in years. The locket might belong to a former people now grown. As she turned the rounded pendant over in her hands, the well-worn catch came loose of its own accord, falling open atop Sara's palm and bearing its contents. Oh! The locket did not contain a portrait of young Lavina, nor that of any child at all. It was the picture of a woman whose long black hair and dusky skin instantly brought back memories of hot summer breezes and the smell of red clay. An Indian woman? Lavina's Aya? That's not a common picture to keep in a locket, especially if Lavina says she does not remember life in India. It is curious how much this woman resembles Lavina. Oh my! She might at this point have been able to replace the locket and leave the room with no one the wiser. It had been lost for some time, and there's no reason for Lavina to notice it had been disturbed. But Sara was not afraid. Her heart was filled with excitement at her discovery, at the sense of kinship it evoked between herself and her former fellow. She forgot for a moment all that had changed between them. All that she wanted was to sit with Lavina and talk about India. That was why she sat on the bed and waited for Lavina to return. I don't think this is going to go as well as Sara's hoping. Sara, why are you... At the sight of the locket in Sara's hands, Lavina's face took on a disturbing hue of olive. Sara, still innocently gazing at the portrait, did not notice. Is this your mother? She's very beautiful. didn't realize you were of Indian ancestry. I'm not. And now Sara looked up, seeing the expression of strangling rage. She instinctively shrank back against the pillows. I am English. English! With each shout, she stepped closer. Her shaking hands curled into claws, but the points were aimed backward, threatening only herself. I'm not dirty. I am a pure English girl, from a good family. I don't even remember India. I never called you dirty. It's rubbish, all of it. I'm a good girl. That's why my father sent me here. A good English girl. That's why they never visit, so I won't be marked. She slammed her hands down onto the bed, trapping Sara in place, and began to crawl forward with murder in her eyes. How dare you call me half? Lavina, stop it! For a moment, everything froze. Lavina was crouched over Sara like a stalking cat, her eyes wild, her hair hanging down around her face. Her breath came in harsh gasps. Fear sat like a sharp stone in Sara's chest. Nothing in her life had prepared her for this reaction. She could neither speak nor move. Lavina. Lavina's shoulders trembled. I am dirty. Tears burst forth in a noisy wave. There was nothing beautiful about her face as she sobbed. Lavina, there's nothing wrong with... You're not dirty. You can't tell anyone. I have to hide it. No one can know. I am an English girl. I'd be cast out. Outcast, half-caste. Mariette was of mixed race, and no one objected to her. Mariette Dumas was a servant. I'm a lady. No gentleman would marry. My mother had some mixed blood. What? Your mother was French. So's Mariette's. I never knew my mother, but she might have looked just a little like you. And my father thought she was beautiful. Hazarding a smile, she held up the lockets. You don't have to be ashamed. Lavina snatched the necklace from her hand and threw it against the wall. Your father is dead, and you are a beggar. Worthless, disgusting. I want nothing to do with you. Very well. She swung her feet down from the bed to stand, and Lavina seized her arm. Don't go. Please, you can't. You mustn't tell anyone, promise me. I'll kill you if you tell. Sara looked into those frantic eyes and could no longer find it in herself to be afraid. All that she felt for Lavina was pity. You never understood me. You never knew in your heart how to be a lady or a princess. Of course I would not gossip about your mother. That would be vulgar. Again she moved, and Lavina clutched at her. Don't leave me. I have work to do, don't you remember? I am a servant. At last, Lavina's grip relented, and Sara climbed to her feet. I am sorry for you. We might have been friends. With that, she left Lavina alone with her tears. What's going on? I thought I heard yelling. Sara walked straight past her without speaking. Let Lavina explain if she wants. It doesn't concern me. Well, the truth's out. That's the first step towards healing, right? Sara stood looking out at the sunset. There were floods of molten gold, covering the west as if a glorious tide was sweeping over the world. Oh, and by the way, did I call it or did I not call it? Like, I called it. Way back in Act 1. Not just that she was half Indian. That one wasn't too hard, just given character design details. But the fact that she has a big hang-up about it, yeah. Granted, I mean, it was pretty easy to tell, but I suppose good storytelling typically has a lot of clues you pick up on that makes it all feel more satisfying. If it comes out of nowhere, then it kind of feels lame and arbitrary. Sara sighed to herself as she craned her head upwards. All of a sudden, she heard a strange sound. Not a sparrow's chirp, but a strange little squeaky chattering, and it came from the window of the next attic. Sara turned excited. Had someone come at last to watch the sunset as she did? There was a head visible, framed in the skylight, but it was not that of a little girl, but of a tired housemaid. In fact, it was the tufted head of a small, black-faced monkey. Oh! For Sara, it was like catching a glimpse of a long-lost friend passing nearby in a crowd. When she had lived with her papa in India, she had played with just such creatures. She had not thought to see them again. She swung the skylight up, leaning out as far as she dared to get a better look. You darling thing! I wish you could come for a visit. As if in answer, the monkey rapped its paw 3 times against the window surface. Then all at once it hopped down into its own room, away from the skylight and out of Sara's view. Sara waited, hoping that he might return, if only for a moment. I think that I hear him, still chattering away. Perhaps he is swinging from shelf to shelf in their attic as if it were a jungle. No, I do hear something. A voice was speaking in a low tone. Not a monkey, but a man. And then to her surprise, someone appeared in the attic window. Someone with dark skin and brightly embroidered clothing. A Lascar! He held the monkey in his arms, where it snuggled and chirped against his breast. As Sara looked toward him, he looked toward her. Hello! Sara learned for herself how comforting a smile, even from a stranger, might be. Hers was evidently a pleasure to him. He smiled in return, and his whole face was illuminated. How stereotypically Indian are we going? Oh, what the heck. Hello, Miss Sahib. You must have come up here for the sun since it's so seldom seen in England. So you're what Karan wished for me to see? The monkey brought you here? What a delightful thought that an Indian monkey should bring an Indian man to be my friend. This little one brings me many places. He has a form forever running into trouble and expecting his tail friend to protect him. The familiar cadences of his accent washed over Sara like a summer rain. How long it had been since she had heard such a voice. Forgive me, Miss Sahib. I would open the window to greet you properly, but I fear Karim might try to make an escape. I would not wish to lose him, my friend. My master is ill, and this creature is mischievous. Provide him much amusement. Charan? Is it Charan? Charan? Charan. Though Charan does not know England or its weather, he might come to harm. Of course. Perhaps we'll meet again on another sunset. The sound of his quiet laughter did not pass through the closed window, but the flashing white of his teeth showed his amusement. Until another sunset, Miss Sahib. He disappeared then. She thought it possible that he might have bowed to her, but it was too difficult to tell through the skylight. I wonder if he lives in an attic like me, or if he is only chasing the monkey. I do not know his rank in that household. I hope that England is kinder to him than it was to me. Okay, we need to focus hard on pride. There's no better way to get pride than tending to the fires, so this is going to be like an all-fire tending day. With a little bit of running errands. Alright. That is not what you wanted to see. Now, the issue with this one is if you get unlucky, it probably has one of the lower expected values since one of it is on net 0. Or, yeah. We got 2 pride. Why is pride so hard to come by? As a servant. Okay, fair enough. 5 fatigue, 2 pride, 1 pain, 1 chill, 4 sorrow. So you hear about the fellow next door? Seems he's not an Oriental or an Indian at all. That's what Sara said. Luckily for Becky, Cook was not in enough of a temper to clout her for calling Sara Miss in her hearing. So she know all of about the English gentleman living in that place. Delia should never get me there, not if I had to jump off a boat and swim home. Nothing good ever comes from India. It's all tigers and cobras and midges, and that suck the blood right out of you, or spit black poison. It's a wonder the children live long enough to be shipped back here. If only Papa would let me stay there. Anyway, it seems that fellow's gone and run himself an hole. But he lost his whole fortune, he did. It drove him to wreck, thinking he was ruined forever. Well, of course, still rich as anything. Though it'd do him good if he died of fret. Do him no good if he died of fret. Driv's all about mines, and mines with diamonds in. This is sounding oddly familiar. Enough saves my mind, never go into no mines, particular diamond ones. We all know something of them. Becky gulped and nodded. He felt as my papa felt. He was ill just like my papa, but he did not die. Not yet. Poor man, I hope he will be well. Perhaps he has a child in England as well? For the sake of that child, I would help him any way I could. Or for his own sake, and for the sake of my papa, whom I could not save. I mean, is there a possibility that that's just straight up my dad moved across the street? I know he's supposed to be dead, but like... And people get reported dead mistakenly all the time. Maybe not all the time, but it happens, especially in this time period. Wasn't there a story of a guy who, like, he went to go study, like, an astronomical phenomena, but missed it, and then stayed for, like, another, like, several years to be able to see it again? But they, like, he was presumed dead in the meantime? Like, maybe it's something like that. That, or failing that, it could be, like, my dad's, like, business associate or something, and if that's the case, maybe he has, like, some guilt, like, oh, man. Kinda, yeah. Maybe I should help out my old business partner's daughter a bit. At least to the extent where she's not just, you know, stuck in eternal servitude. Anyways, fatigue and chill. Nice. The cold of a long London night was a terror far removed from the provinces of India. If she were not sent out in the day, Sara could wear stockings in bed to try and preserve some warmth in her toes. Too often, however, all that she owned were soaked or muddy. Shivering, she tucked the blanket more firmly under herself and waited for her own body warmth to build. Then quietly there came a rap at the door. Becky? She rose from the bed to see what was the matter. Lavina? What are you doing up here in the servants' quarters? The older girl stood, candle in hand, breathing quickly from the uncommon exertion of mounting so many stairs. Sara, Please come to my room. My duties are finished for the day. I need to sleep. And if you wake Miss Minchin to complain that I won't obey you, she'll scold you as much as me. That isn't the reason. I don't want you to work for me. I have things to give you. Lavina lifted up onto her toes, trying to peer past Sara's head into the attic room, but the flickering circle of candlelight blinded her to all but what was directly in front of her. It's very cold up here, isn't it? My room is much warmer. Please, won't you come with me? Would it make me a bad person to refuse her when she keeps saying please? All right. They walked together through the dark seminary halls. Did you hear that? What? Like a door closing. I think you have imagined it. No, it came through the actual, like, soundscape. It definitely happened. I think. You always were so very good at pretending things, and these halls are somewhat frightening in the dark. It'd be easy to mistake a coat track for some disturbing revenant crowned with thorns. If she's brought me here for a jest to try and frighten me, but no dark shape awaited them in Lavina's room.
You see, I bought some cakes for us to share. I have drinks as well. I should have liked to have tea with you, but there was no way to manage it without forcing you to make it yourself. But here in the dark, isn't it special?
The cakes looked most appetizing, but Sara was weary and her heart no longer eager to trust.
Why are you doing this, Lavina? You don't call me Miss Herbert anymore?
No, I don't. And also I'm off the clock.
That's alright. You don't have to.
What?
Please sit down. Have some ginger cake and the soda water. It is meant to be very healthful.
I think that is actually true. I think... Because there are actually naturally occurring springs of carbonated water, right? Like obviously, these days you buy Coke or whatever. That's obviously artificially carbonated, but the initial idea, I believe, comes from actual springs or water and, I guess it's carbon. Yeah, that makes sense. Maybe it's carbon dioxide specifically. But where they mix and actually create a carbonated water spring. And so then our modern sodas are kind of attempts at artificially recreating that, actually. And as with a lot of random little early drinks and stuff, I do believe the carbonated water was initially touted as something of a health tonic. Granted, so was like Coca-Cola back in the day, so take the actual health claims with a grain of salt, but the historical claim of it was once one of this, I do think might actually be true. I think I remember hearing that at some point. Anyway.
I want you to be well.
Mystified, Sara took a seat and accepted the bottle that Lavina handed her. The glass vial had a rounded bottom, so once the cork was removed from the neck, she could not set it down until it was empty. It was late, but there were never any days in which cook provided her so much food that a snack could be unappealing. Still, the question lingered.
Why are you doing this? Because I'm lonely. You are the only person who I have no reason to be afraid of anymore. You have already seen the worst of me. And you make a better companion, a better confidant than Tybalt's.
The cat?
So you see me as a pet?
No, sir. What she's saying is... I get it. Because in the back of her mind, she's got this panic, this fear. Because she's got this secret of oh, I'm actually half Indian. And that would be frowned upon in this day and age. And, if people knew, then, that would affect my standing in society. And if it ever got out, it might be ruined, much like Sara is here. And so every social interaction, justified or unjustified, she has that niggling thought in the back of her mind of well, if I slip up, if somehow it's revealed that my actual, heritage here, it could just ruin me. But then we got Sara here, who found out, and if anything, made her seem to want to get closer to Lavina. You're the one person Lavina knows she can trust with her secret that will not hold it against her. I get it.
If I wanted a pet, I would keep Jessie.
Lavina laid her hand on Sara's knee, a hand with clean, gently buffed nails and fingers that had never known hard labor.
We understand each other, don't we? We are two of a kind. You are the truest friend that I have ever known. If that were true, what a pitiable thought. If we are not friends at all. Outside these walls, in society, I must fit myself to their mold. If I am to succeed, that is. There's no one else whom I can talk to, unvarnished at books, or bones, or blood. No gentleman would have me if he knew all the thoughts in my head, if he knew my secrets. I refuse to end up like me. Yes. And I do not wish to see you languish here either. I want you for my companion, Sara. As I said before, Miss Minchin despises you. She will use you until you are dry. And you won't? Are you going to eat your cake? I am eating it.
The cake was rich and sticky and delicious, with a hint of orange to accompany the ginger. The soda water was fizzy and strange, but not unwholesome. There's nothing wrong with the food.
How to take care of you, to save you. You can't take me away. You don't have a household. When we're older, then. But there are things I can do for you now. Yes. Thank you for the food.
She set the empty bottle on the desk surface, placed carefully so that it would not roll.
I should return to my room now. It's so cold up there. Why don't you sleep in my bed? What? There is plenty of room for two, and I won't tell, I promise. It is warm and soft. But I'm dirty, my feet. If you're with me, I don't care about being dirty.
It was too much. Food, a sympathetic shoulder, a warm bed. Sara could not refuse. Lavina blew out her candles. They crawled into the bed together, and for the first time in months, Sara felt herself cradled in comfort. There was more than enough room for two tired little girls to lie side by side without touching, yet Sara felt fingertips brush against her arm.
Sara, what is it? Is this all right? It's fine. I'm tired. I'm sorry.
Sara thought at first that Lavina was apologizing for keeping her from her well-deserved sleep, but then...
I'm sorry I tried to take your doll away.
In the darkness, she could not see Lavina's face, but her words, for once, sounded sincere.
Why did you want Emily? Because she was yours. Because if I could make you give in, that would prove that I was... what? Better than you. I'm not better than you. I know that. I'm no princess.
It was the most vulnerable thing that Sara had ever heard her say.
Lavina.
Impulsively, she caught the other girl's hand in hers and squeezed it.
Any girl can be a princess if she tries to be. Even you.
Sara considered Lavina's startled laughter to be a quite melodious sound.
Sara Crewe, you really are unique.
The bedsheet rustled as Lavina rolled closer. Sara fancied that she could feel that warm breath tickling her nose. Neither of them expected the bedroom door to be opened from the outside. I was not... There was no impropriety here. I assure you, I was making an evening call to one of our esteemed students, and I was, they needed that the bed was needed to be dusted and warmed, and I don't have a good excuse. Sara Crewe, what is the meaning of this? This outrage!
Miss Minchin?
She leapt from the bed at once, striking the chair and stumbling in her haste.
Did Lavina arrange this? Was it all a trick? It can't have been. You wicked! No, Miss Minchin, please.
Lavina climbed to her feet, holding out a protective arm.
It was my idea. She truly is defending me, just as I would have defended another.
With that spark of rapport kindled in her heart, it was easy for Sara to hear the intent behind Lavina's next posturing words.
I pitied her. She was respected once. I wanted to perform a charitable act.
I see. Your generosity and kindness are admirable. Sara could not see Miss Minchin's face clearly, but the sweetness of her words was strained. However, too much softness disrupts an orderly household. There are worthier ways to give... Come along, Sara.
But
You may not keep a scullery girl in your room. It is improper. Your father would not approve.
My father would have approved of kindness.
And look what a mess you've made of your hair. You look like a little savage. Oh. At those words, Lavina's resolve flagged. Her arm fell limp to her side, and Sara was exposed to Miss Minchin's reach. Sara, come here, now!
Yes, Miss Minchin.
Once they were out of Lavina's sight, Miss Minchin shoved Sara's head roughly forward. Get your room at once! Do you think I have time to chase after you girls all night? Her voice was low but harsh. You've already disrupted Miss Abbott's sleep. I won't have the entire house out of their beds.
Jessie?
Another push forced her to keep moving. We didn't do anything with Jessie. At the attic door, Sara stumbled inside to get away from those hands. Do not think that Miss Herbert's foolish fondness will grant you any extra privileges. Young ladies have their whims, but you are only a servant. Tonight the hour is late, but if I catch you overstepping your bounds again, you will be punished. Do you understand me?
Yes, Miss Minchin. Is this what Becky faced in the past when I tried to be kind to her?
See that you do not forget it. The steady clacking of her heels moved down the stairs, leaving Sara, once again, alone in the cold and dark. The clouds had parted and moonlight gleamed from Emily's watchful eyes. Silently, Sara padded across the floor and slipped into the unyielding embrace of her bed. She could not help but compare it with those too few moments, soft and stolen, by Lavina's side.
For just a moment I thought she was almost... But it's too late. If Miss Minchin catches me with Lavina, she'll punish me. I am so tired of being punished. I'm so tired.